Oh, what a mess.
This is Neil Schneider from Meant to Be Seen. Welcome back to my messy basement. I want to wish everyone a very happy American Thanksgiving. I thought I'd do something special today. We're actually going to do 2 episodes this week, okay? And just going to give you a little bit of a background here. So, past few episodes of Neil's Messy Basement have been very focused on making the PC the ultimate home entertainment system. I'm excited about games. I'm excited about streaming media, 4K Blu-ray, everything. As much as I can get running on the PC, I'm happy. I wanted everything looking and sounding great. Okay, so when I'm talking about looking and sounding great, I'm talking about getting that full surround sound experience. In particular, Dolby Atmos and DTS:X. These are the latest generation surround sound technologies, and they add a lot to my experience. Okay, so if I could enable them, I'm really happy. But the thing is, I didn't want to have to shell out more money for a new display. I'm really happy with my projection setup. I'm using a Panasonic AE7000 projector. It's a cinema projector. Looks great. And unfortunately, though, some providers require 4K, and they require certain things that the content works on my legacy equipment. So I had to figure some things out. So what I did, I should say, over the past few episodes is we've covered a lot with the PC, how to get the most out of a PC. Talked about taking 4K content and downscaling it. And even so that it works on my equipment. And even though it's a 1080 display, still looks good. Still looks better when you have a 4K source, down to 1080p. So there were different ways to do it. In this case, we could do some of it on the PC directly. Other cases, we got a scaler involved. So we talked about some products there. Did a buying guide review. We did a review of the TXNR595 surround sound system. But it wasn't about the review. It was about showing you how to go about buying surround sound and speakers and what to look out for. Of course, talked about Dolby Atmos and DTS:X, the latest generation in surround sound technologies. You can probably tell I'm very excited by it. We reviewed some audio card solutions so that audio sounds even better out of your gaming PC. So we tested solutions by Creative Labs and EVGA. So that was really cool stuff. And we talked about 4K Blu-ray. To this day, really the best 4K Blu-ray player, if you use the right utilities, and we dedicated an episode to talk about this, you get the best results. Even when you're using legacy equipment, even if you don't have a high dynamic range display, you can get a 4K Blu-ray looking and sounding amazing on a cinema projector such as this. So we covered that as well. And we also did a special episode all about calibrating your video equipment and your audio equipment. So that when you come home, from the store with your surround sound setup or your new HDTV or projector, it looks and sounds amazing. Granted, it will look good when you take it out of the box. But if you do some calibrations, it could look and sound even better. So we've done a lot with PC. Really, we were able to do a lot. And now we get to streaming media. And when I'm talking about streaming media, I'm talking about content like Disney Plus and Netflix and Amazon Prime and Apple TV. And there's a whole slew of streaming content providers. Unfortunately, this is where we kind of hit our limit with PC. There is an exception, okay? Netflix has a dedicated application for PC, and you can play 4K content. You could get Dolby Atmos. They really did a fantastic job with the Netflix app. Unfortunately, and there are other providers that have applications for PC to play content, but they don't deliver. I'm not gonna name names, but a lot of providers limit themselves to 720p, so you're not getting the full resolution. You're not even getting, 1080p or 4K. Okay, And they don't provide, in some cases, they don't even provide surround sound at all. They won't provide basic 5.1 surround. You'll get stereo. So it's just not the way to go, okay? And I tried, but I couldn't figure out a way to make that angle work. So the solution isn't so bad though. Figure we got the PC, we've got a receiver, so a surround sound setup. All we need is a streaming stick, okay? And but the thing, and the streaming stick will play back most of these content providers. They usually, support all the providers at the same time. But there's a catch, okay? So these sticks are not born equal. And what I mean by that is when it comes to Dolby Atmos support, for example, they don't support it equally well. Okay? Each card will support it slightly differently. We're starting to see service limitations from one card to the next. For example, it was in the news recently, Roku and Google were having some license negotiations for YouTube. Didn't work out the way it was expected. YouTube's not on Roku. I mean, we'll see how long that lasts. It could change. I mean, the services, I've actually seen it happen in real time where, services come and go, or features come and go on a streaming stick. So there could be imbalances and differences from one stick to the next. And then you may have specific needs yourself. I mean, maybe you have a unique setup in your home that requires certain settings, and the streaming sticks may not give you the flexibility you need to do exactly as you need. So this is going to be a two-part setup here. So this first part for today, I'm going to talk about I'm going to classify them as the $50 streaming sticks. This is actually the higher end of available streaming sticks. I'm going to talk about what they do, what they work with, things to watch out for. And in particular, I'm going to review the Roku Streaming Stick Plus, the 4K edition, the Chromecast and Google TV, which is, of course, the Google solution, and then the Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K edition. Okay. Now, I want to underscore, these are, when I say higher end, I mean they support 4K and they support Dolby Atmos and so on, but that's not necessarily from a price point of view. There is another solution, okay, which I'm going to talk about in the next episode for the NVIDIA Shield TV Pro. And whereas these solutions were $50 a piece, MSRP, the Shield Pro is $259 US, okay? And there's significantly more under the hood, okay? So depending on your needs, the Shield may be the direction for you as well, but it depends on your budget and your immediate needs. They're all very good solutions, and I'm going to go into them. All these solutions are common, have commonalities between them, okay? They all connect to the HDMI connector in the back of your surround sound receiver or the HDMI connector directly into your display or your television. Simple as that. As far as streaming content support, it really doesn't matter who makes the streaming stick. It is quite something that even direct competitors will support each other. So, they all support Disney Plus, Netflix, Apple TV, Amazon Prime, and there's other, of course, big names on the list. And then you have some, more specialized content that, some stick out more than others. Now, as far as general features, they all do 720p resolution up to 4K HDR resolution. They all support HDR10, which is the most basic form of high dynamic range support, but some will go as far as supporting Dolby Vision, which is the latest generation of HDR support. They all support Dolby Digital 5.1, which means that they all have basic surround sound support, though Dolby Digital is a bit more than basic. It speaks to the compression, but anyway, that's a side topic. They all market themselves, note the words, they all market themselves as supporting Dolby Atmos, and they do support Dolby Atmos, but there are caveats, and I'm going to go into that shortly. They have ARC support, So that's a way of wiring or connecting the streaming stick so that you don't have to use as many wires with your surround sound setup. You read up on it. I'm not going to go into details here. They all have Wi-Fi connectivity, which means that it's wireless. You don't need to have a wired connector, though they don't actually have a wired connector. And some may have some extra storage that you could download apps and programs. And I'm going to go into that. Now, other cool common features that they all do, they all connect with a Plex server. So the idea of a Plex server is you could have a cloud service in your home, like maybe you have a cloud PC or a, like a cloud device, and the idea is that the streaming stick could connect to your cloud and your Plex server on your cloud, and you could watch your movies and watch your home videos and your content on whatever display is your stream stick is connected to. So Plex is extremely popular, and it's nice that they all support it. All the streaming sticks I'm reviewing today have voice capabilities. So what I mean by that or voice control capabilities. What I mean by that is I could talk directly into the remote control, and there's an assistant there that will pull up the content that I want, or look things up on the internet, or any number, or control my smart home depending on the device. So lots of things. You can stream games from your PC. Let me clarify. You could have a gaming PC in your home, and your streaming stick could connect to your PC through your local network, and you could play games on your display that your streaming stick is connected to, even if your PC is in a different room in your home. You notice I'm surrounded by peripherals like keyboards and mice and stuff, and the reason that is all the streaming sticks can connect to your Bluetooth peripherals, headphones, game controllers, keyboards, mice. Some are more compatible than others, but it's pretty far range with all these sticks. So let me start with game streaming. Okay, so I brought that up. Now this is a feature. Now I know we're getting our streaming sticks primarily for the content, for the Disney Pluses and the Netflixes and the Amazons and all that stuff. But this is something unique as well that the sticks offer. And I thought I'd talk a little bit about it. So Valve has a service they call Steam Link. Okay, as I described before, you have your gaming PC, however powerful it is, and through your local network, it connects to the stream stick. So what you do, you're not gonna control your game with your remote control. So what you do is you connect your peripherals. So you could connect a Bluetooth game controller or mouse and keyboard, and you play your games this way. But I want to show you something else. I have to be careful because my cat thinks these are cat treats, so I don't want to get her too interested. So what you can do is, if you have peripherals, if you're like me and you don't have Bluetooth peripherals, you can get a very inexpensive dongle. Okay, it's a generic thing. I got this on Amazon, and there's any number of brands that make them. And the idea is that there is an input on your streaming stick that's used for charging. It's like a USB connection. So what this does is it plugs into that connection that's usually used for power. The second wire connects to the power supply, and then it adds a third wire, which is a full-sized USB connector. And this full-sized USB connector can be used for your game controller, your keyboard, your mouse. In fact, what you could do is you could attach a USB hub, and a hub is like a USB splitter. So basically, one USB connector goes to like 3 USB connections or 6 USB connections, whatever it is, and you can plug all your devices in, and the streaming stick, depending on the model and how advanced it is, will recognize that. So this is a good workaround if you don't have Bluetooth available among your peripherals and you want to connect to the streaming stick. However, all that being said, and it is a really cool idea, streaming games from your local PC to your streaming stick, it wasn't for me. I found it cumbersome. There were a handful of titles that worked well. Okay, like it was playable, and it was like, yeah, man, this is cool. But for the most part, it was hard to add new titles. It was laggy. It was just it didn't quite work right. It didn't sound right. It was very frustrating, and I can't recommend it. Now, if we're talking cloud gaming, where it's not coming from your local PC, but from the internet, like a Google Stadia or an NVIDIA GeForce Now, and there's other formidable solutions out there too. That's a different story, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. So let me talk. Now we can get into specifics, okay? Because you'd think that all these streaming sticks are the same, but they're not. And I'm going to talk about the differences between them. So first up, Roku Streaming Stick Plus. It's approximately $50 US, $49.99 if you want to be specific. That's MSRP. You might be able to get it for less. It supports HDR10, most basic HDR mode, but it has no Dolby Vision or HDR10 Plus support. So if you have a display that is capable of doing a better version of HDR, it will work for you, but you'll miss out on those improved HDR modes. So my advice right off the bat is to go with something else if that's important for you. It's based on Roku OS. Okay, so right now they're at version 10.4, and they do update it fairly regularly with new features. So that's another advantage of these streaming sticks, that they do improve the longer you own them. It does have voice control, so it's good for pulling up content, things like that. Though it's not the Google Assistant or Alexa. Roku has their own thing. And in the case of the Roku Streaming Stick Plus, it officially doesn't have storage. Okay, so you could get content and stuff, but it doesn't really have dedicated storage, or at least it doesn't market itself as having dedicated storage the way the other solutions do. Now, remote control, I really like it. I really like it. It's got a very nice feel to it. It's substantial. I know I've dropped this more than I'd like to admit, and it's held up very nicely. When you're using the Roku interface, okay, it's very intuitive. In fact, if you read up anything about Roku, people love it because it's as intuitive as it is. Another feature with this remote is they have fast access buttons for like Netflix and Disney Plus, and and Roku has their own channel, and they localize it for you too. So I have like a button for Global TV, which is a local network. But if you bought this in your area, it would probably have something localized for you. Let's take a look. See here. Okay. So as for applications, so the thing about Roku is it's not really about the applications. It's all about the channels. So yes, you have the big brand channels, as I described earlier. You also have Plex connectivity, so you can connect to a local Plex server or whatever Plex server you have, so that's all fine. But as far as the and there are applications for casting. So what I mean by that is, let's say you're playing something on your mobile device, and you want what you're seeing on your mobile device to appear on your big display. Well, Roku has their own system for doing that. Okay, there is a standard in that area, but there are also third-party apps that do something similar that you have to pay for. So Roku has some stuff available in that area as well. But really, what sets Roku apart from the other streaming sticks is they have a huge library of independent channels. A lot of it is free. A lot of it is paid for. Okay. I'd say that the quality is a mixed bag. I mean, some of it could be out of date. It's got a very community access feel to it. That's not good or bad. It just is. But something that my wife discovered it. She really liked it. Was all the major or most of the major networks have a Roku presence. And she was able to get like local news from Philadelphia, like local news broadcasting from Philadelphia. So as one example, and there's other cities as well. Others do this, by the way. Other providers do this too, but it was really noticeable on the Roku. So with Roku, it's all about the channels. Dolby Atmos, okay. So Dolby Atmos on the Roku Streaming Stick Plus, it only works with Apple TV and Disney Plus. I couldn't get it to work with Netflix, and couldn't get it to work with Amazon Prime. Now, something that is good about the Roku is if you have a legacy display, so let's say you have a full HD or a 1080p display like myself, if you're using Disney Plus, it is the only solution that would support Dolby Atmos while running at a 1080p resolution. It's kind of an odd qualification, right? Because otherwise the other solutions that did support it, you needed a 4K display or the Dolby Atmos wouldn't work for you. So anyway, so score one for Roku. But other than that, the only thing I could get working on it was Apple TV and Disney Plus with Dolby Atmos. So let's move on. So then we've got the Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K edition. Also $50, $49.99. It supports HDR10. It also supports HDR10 Plus and Dolby Vision. So that's the latest generation HDR support. Amazon has their own operating system, which they call Fire OS, and they do updates similar to Roku, so the software is regularly updated. They have Alexa built into the remote control. So, I could talk into it and Alexa will respond, and, she could control my smart home or pull up content, whatever she needs to do. It does come with storage. Okay, it's got 8 gigabytes of storage. In practice, it's actually 5 gigabytes because some of it, goes to the operating system. As for the remote control, I like the remote control. It's very sturdy. They've got easy, it's easy button control. And in fact, like the interface is pretty good. But something to be aware of, there's no content buttons, not even for Amazon Prime, surprisingly. So if you have a specific provider or content provider that you like, just be aware that you'll need to go through their interface to get there. Not a big deal. As far as applications, I'd say the priority applications for the Fire TV Stick is Plex, okay, for streaming media from your local cloud. They do have some web browser support, but it's kind of frustrating, using a remote control to control the web. And they actually have some file management through like local area network file management, but I wouldn't go into your network through a streaming stick. I don't think it's a very helpful application. Now, as for the rest, what I found is a lot of the applications tended to be content in disguise. So it would look like an application, but you get into the application and it's like a TV show, so it wasn't really an application. They do have, Amazon has a pretty big library of casual games that you could play with their remote control that you download and you play. It's not, casual games, okay? And they also have, similar to Roku, they have all kinds of third-party cast applications that you could cast from your display to the Amazon Fire TV Stick. But you have to pay for them. But just so you know, they are available. Just looking at the library, though, you're going to see big lists of apps that you won't necessarily need or use. I mean, it just seems to be a community of content, but it's not necessarily important content, if that makes sense. Now, the Dolby Atmos support, I was surprised. It's very, very limited. The only thing I was able to get running with Dolby Atmos on Amazon's Fire TV Stick was Disney Plus, and the only way to get Disney Plus working with Dolby Atmos was to have a 4K output running with high dynamic range. If I had anything less than that, I would get Disney Plus, but it would come out as 5.1 surround sound. So I wasn't getting the benefits of the surround sound. Now, there is a later version of this streaming stick called the Amazon Fire TV Stick Max, and it's a little bit better. It's got a faster processor. It supports the latest Wi-Fi 6 standard, so it's the latest version of wireless connectivity. But I really don't think that will benefit most people very much, because what we had before is plenty, I think. But based on what I've read, okay, I don't have it, but based on what I've read, I don't anticipate any new Dolby Atmos benefits from the streaming stick. But research it. I mean, if you have a Dolby Atmos setup and this, the Amazon Fire TV Stick Max looks interesting to you, research it. As far as oversights with the card, what I found is I had specific needs for my display, and often when I'd make changes in the display setup, it would ignore my changes and just read off my display what my display was capable of, and forced the output based on that. So that was frustrating, that I couldn't really make the adjustments that I had available to me in the menu. And so if you have a custom setup, like that you need special things set up, you may run into some challenges. Now finally we get to Chromecast with Google TV. Okay, so this of course is Google's solution. Also $49 or $49.99 or around $50. This supports HDR10, Dolby Vision, and HDR10+. So basically the newest generation of high dynamic range on your display. It's an Android-based OS, obviously. It's got Google Assistant, so I could speak to this remote and Google Assistant will respond, and I could control my smart home. I could ask for content. I could do all kinds of exciting stuff, all from this remote control. It comes with 8 gigabytes of storage, but again, 5 gigabytes in practice. And for the gamer inside you, it's got official Google Stadia support, which is Google's cloud gaming service. Now, as for the remote control, it actually feels less sturdy than the other devices. It's not as solid. I don't know if it's about like what it is about the plastic. It just feels a bit thinner. Okay, it feels a little flimsier compared to the other solutions. But the thing is, I have dropped this. I have dropped this a few times, and I've got a hardwood floor, and it's held up. So maybe so it's not really flimsy, but it just doesn't feel quite the same way as the other remote controls. It has 2 content buttons, one for YouTube, one for Netflix. Okay, maybe when you get your version, it might be different, but from what I've seen, it's consistent between the different versions. As far as the controls, it did take a little getting used to. It wasn't quite as intuitive as the other solutions, getting around the interface. But, I might be unique, because please understand, I've got all these different remote controls that I've been using and testing and going one to the next. I would bet that if this was your first and only streaming stick, you wouldn't have a learning curve as I did. I think it would be pretty intuitive right off the bat. Now, as far as the applications are concerned, most are content-based. Okay, there are some apps. There is a Google Store that you could download apps from for the streaming stick, but nothing really stood out. Like there wasn't really anything urgent that I want to run on the streaming stick other than content. Of course, there's Plex connectivity, which is important, and Google Stadia support, which was, I think, very key, and I'm going to talk about that in a moment. Now, the strongest point for this Chromecast and Google TV is, with the exception of NVIDIA Shield, which I'm going to talk about in the next episode, this had the most diverse support for Dolby Atmos. Okay, so if you have a Dolby Atmos, this is going to be a very important feature for you. The only exceptions were with Disney Plus. It required to have a 4K HDR output, or else I'd only get 5.1 surround sound. Okay, so you need to have an 4K HDR display connected that you're getting to get the Dolby Atmos feed. Otherwise, you're limited to 5.1 surround sound. I couldn't get any Amazon Prime Dolby Atmos support from this at all. But just so you know, the amount of Dolby Atmos content on Amazon is somewhat limited compared to the other providers. That may have to do with it more than anything. But that said, something interesting, okay? When I first got the Chromecast and Google TV, when I went to get on Disney Plus, I could actually get Dolby Atmos with 1080p, with a 1080p display. So with a legacy display. And I was really happy. And then a software update later, gone. Okay, limited to 4K HDR. So, I don't know why that happened. Okay, I know we're a minority now of 1080 devices, but it was kind of sad to see that functionality go. But anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm just pointing it out. Okay, now Google Stadia. Now this is something that I think stood out on Chromecast and Google TV. So just a quick reminder, with Google's solution, you could connect your Bluetooth peripherals, so game controllers and keyboard and mice. Now Google has a table of solutions that they recognize. You may have more success than what's listed at that table. So you're going to have to try things out for yourself. And I didn't actually have one of these dongles. I had it for the other solutions and I discovered it by accident. But the Google solution is based on USB-C, which is a different type of USB connector. So there is a dongle like this. There is something like this, but in a USB-C form. So what this means is when you have that wired solution plugged into the Chromecast, or Google's Chromecast and Google TV, you will be able to connect keyboards and mice and game controllers wired in. Okay, so it is available. Unfortunately for me, I didn't have that luxury, so I had to use my smartphone as the game controller. And, it was just for testing purposes, okay? Just for testing purposes. So what I did was for Google Stadia, I did the Google Stadia Pro trial. So it's like the full-fledged Google, but on a trial. I was able to get 5.1 surround sound, which is good. I had no latency. It wasn't glitching at all. I was able to get into my games pretty much immediately. There wasn't much delay as far as starting a game and being able to play it. There were no wait times. There wasn't a queue of gamers ahead of me before I could get into the service. And but just be aware that you do need gaming hardware attached. I mean, you're not going to play with your remote, and the smartphone really, it was good for testing purposes, but I don't wish it on you. But Google Stadia itself, from what I saw, it's a formidable service. Definitely a formidable service. They had a fair-sized library online. Things looked good. They sounded good. And keep in mind, if you've got a local gaming PC with ray tracing and the whole thing, you could probably do a better job locally. But as cloud services go, looking at the game and being able to play it and the convenience of it, it was very good. And it was really kind of cool that I could game like that through a very small streaming stick solution. So, but we got a lot of options here. I talked about it a lot. So which stick is going to be right for you? Well, it depends on your situation. If you're like me, if you have a Dolby Atmos setup, which I'm proud to have, and so we've got all the speakers, and I've got extra front high speakers, and you'll know it if you have it, a Dolby Atmos setup. Now, I would recommend for sure the Google Chromecast and TV. The Chromecast and Google TV. The reason is most of the content supporters run out of the box with Dolby Atmos. You're not missing out on this will support one content provider, but you'll miss out on 3 others. Now most of them are supported, It actually, and not just that, most of them are supported with 1080p. So you could use legacy display hardware and still get that Dolby Atmos experience. The exception was Disney Plus, which required 4K and HDR to work. It supports Dolby Vision. So if you have a later generation display, it will work for you. It's got built-in Chromecast, which is nice. So if I have a mobile device or I've got something on my PC and I want to show it up on the big screen, I can do that. Really nice. It includes Google Assistant, which is a nice touch. So again, I could speak into the remote and Google Assistant speaks back through my system, control my home, all kinds of stuff. Nice feature. It's got a very strong library of Google apps and services. And of course, for gaming, Google Stadia. So that was really good. I'm really happy about that. If you have a basic 5.1 surround sound, so let's say you don't have Dolby Atmos. Let's say you're in a scenario where you got 3 speakers in the front, 2 in the back, classic surround sound. I would recommend Amazon's Fire Stick Plus. Amazon's Fire TV Stick Plus 4K edition. The reason is, well, most of the content providers are supported. It will support Dolby Atmos on Disney Plus, but that won't be important for you. If you have Atmos, you'll be going with Google anyway. It does have Dolby Vision support. Okay, so you can, if you have a higher, like a newer display, you can use the later generation HDR support. It does have Alexa voice control, so it's, Alexa is similarly capable to Google. If you have a smartphone, smart home, you can control it with the remote, get content, look things up on the internet, all kinds of stuff. Very cool. I like the remote has a very nice feel to it. Okay, it's durable. I really like that, and there is a decent library of Amazon apps and services. Separate from content, I did like their library of casual games. That was a nice touch. So this would be a very good second choice. Now, if you just have a television, okay, let's say you just have a display, you don't have a surround sound, that's not important to you. I mean, the Roku is excellent. Okay, there's good reason that its interface is really liked among TV users. However, beyond that, I would happily just go with whatever's on sale. I mean, that's what it comes down to. You're not really going to see very big differences, with the exception if you want cloud gaming. That's one advantage that Google Stadia has. But other than that, if you're just dealing with a television or just a display, just get whatever's on sale. So just some quick observations, okay? I was surprised overall how imbalanced the Dolby Atmos support was. I was expecting that all the streaming sticks, when they marketed Dolby Atmos, that it would work on all the providers that said that they have Dolby Atmos support. But each streaming stick was different, okay? And actually, the story of which supported Dolby Atmos actually changed over a time as well. And I think that from a customer point of view, it's asking for trouble, because think of what it is to call technical support. Hey, my Dolby Atmos isn't working, and you don't know if it's the content provider or if it's the streaming stick. I think that these streaming stick providers need to be more proactive in just stating, hey, we do support Dolby Atmos, and these are the content providers that we know work at this time. And I was very surprised that I didn't get an answer on that front when I inquired. So from a customer point of view, this is what I would recommend. It's understandable, maybe there are license agreements and stuff that prevent 100% compatibility, but please, for the customer, be upfront about it. Yes, market Dolby Atmos, but tell them which content providers work on your streaming stick. Anyway, Now, that said, before you finalize your purchase, I know, $50, that sounds great. A lot of great solutions for your display and your surround sound system. Very exciting stuff. Before you finalize that purchase, in the next episode is NVIDIA Shield TV Pro. And this is more than a streaming stick. Okay, it's really exciting stuff. It's significantly more money, but in the next episode, we're going to find out why it's $210 more than the other solutions in the market. And if it's worth your while, if you've got the resources, find out why this would be an excellent choice to make. See, I'm already spoiling for you. Obviously, I like it, but you're going to find out why.